mistakes that they made were and where they thought that they did a good job. And he had also began the program when he was at Colgan. So he had started 2 programs as superintendent. So it was very, very helpful information that he went through. And so we did a kind of a postmortem on what their first 3 years looked like. And I have his comments in here also. I can tell you that his opinion is that it has been a very positive experience for Russellton. Even though they did not win a game varsity this year, they had 2 games go down actually to the very last minute. And so they were that close to winning. He said if he had to do it all over again, he may have done 2 years of junior varsity instead of 1. But the way they did it was they did the first year was a junior high only. But that includes 7th, 8th, and junior and freshmen. And the school that they played had to agree to allow freshmen, which all of them did because they knew these kids hadn't played before. The second year was junior high and junior varsity. And then the third year, they did a junior high and varsity program because they didn't have enough kids to do junior high, to junior varsity and varsity. So we had 2 teams. And he said they struggled a little bit with numbers this year on the varsity side because they had very few seniors because those kids hadn't played before. They had COVID issues, and then they had some kids that got hurt. But at the junior high level, they had a lot of kids. And the very first year, they had 27 junior high kids in the meantime. So he said that it was just a bad year to go varsity. But other than that, he was very impressed with how things are going. He said that it's done tremendous things for the community and for the school and for the kids. So again, I'm not going to go through those. I think I went through those last time. So just tell me how long you want me to go here.
I'm just going to leave to your discretion, whatever you think is new points to bring up or whatever you think is important.
All right. Well, I've got the numbers on here and I have the reasons on here. And let me just say, first of all, I think that the timing couldn't be better to add football here at Lynn. And I know last time when we presented, one of the real questions was, how do we afford this? And what I indicated was we've had good growth in revenues at the school district because of all the new construction that's come out. But we didn't know exactly, okay, how long is that going to continue? Well, I can tell you now that we've had 3 years in a row where revenue increases from property taxes in the district have averaged about 100,000 per year. Last year was 92,300 bucks roughly. All of the new construction that's going on now that got completed last year are going to go on the rolls for the first time this year. All the stuff that's being completed now will go on the rolls in another year. So not this year, but in 22. Just judging from the amount of new construction that we have, I would anticipate that we're going to have probably another 2 years, this year and next year, with $100,000 increase each year. And what that means is that as a school district, property tax revenue increases from 5 years ago to 2 years from now, based on that projection, will be $500,000 more than it was. It's $100,000 a year, roughly, give or take. And if the college continues to grow, then these types of private investments will probably continue to go, and we will continue to see. But I would think that there is not a school district outside of metropolitan areas, a rural school district like ours, that has seen that kind of increase. So, in my 30 years here in town, I have not seen the school district's finances in this good shape, and the projections going forward. So, in my opinion, at least from a financial standpoint, this is a great time to add football because I think we can afford it. I think it adds a lot to the community. I think it adds a lot to the kids' experience here. And I think it adds a lot to the school district just in terms of what you can anticipate on football Friday nights during the fall. And there's nothing like it for people who have been involved with that. And I would really like to see Lynn take this up. On the other side of the revenue, it was when I was here 2 years ago, basically, I said, we will commit to try and raise $50,000. And what we were asking for was that the school board would approve it contingent upon us raising that. So if we didn't raise it, then the school board then could rescind the approval. Since that time, recently, we have had a large donor that has made a commitment. And Dr. Strong, I'll let you speak to that.
Okay, so whether people know it or not, 1960, or actually 1961, was the founding of State Tech as part of high school, of course. So this is our 60th anniversary. So I think it's appropriate that State Tech makes a sponsorship level gift to the school for $60,000 for the purpose of starting football. Thurman Willett, I think, probably had the idea years ago, and from everything I've been told, it was super controversial back then. But I think everybody would say it turned out for the best. And I know there are folks that say we need to pay teachers first, and I've looked at and I know where we are compared to some of our competition, and it's a pretty steep gap. But then I ask the question, how do you pay teachers more? And the way you do that is increase the value of property, or you increase property taxes, and nobody wants to see property taxes go up. So how do we increase property valuation? And we're going to continue to see apartments built, but I think the next big thing, and it's the thing that I hope will be subdivisions and single family housing, so we can attract young families to the area. And how do you do that? You have strong school districts, and the amenity for those strong school districts, which young families are going to look for. Does the school district have football or not? If you don't, you may go to a Blair Oaks or some of our competition. So the vision for it is well beyond football. It's about how do we grow the community? How do I attract employees to State Tech? One of my biggest challenges right now is recruiting folks around the country to come to Lynn, Missouri because of our lack of housing. Well, what's going to make them want to come to Lynn? And again, it's the type of folks we hire for the most part have young families. So how do I get those young families to want to come to Lynn, Missouri? So I hope I can look back on this and say I was part of the school board when we approved football.
So that puts us over the 50,000 that we had suggested the last time, 60. I truly believe that I can raise at least another 20, if not more than that. So to put that in perspective, that would, at a minimum, that probably give us about 80. Russellville started with a fundraising drive that was at 30,000. So we are more than twice of where Russellville was in terms of the monies that we would have committed to helping get football started. And I think that would give us, almost everything that we would need in terms of getting the program off the ground, both in terms of field equipment and in terms of player equipment, both for the junior high and for varsity program. Because what you'll see in here is roughly 60 uniforms. And so that would be 10 kids per class, right? My suggestion would be, if it's approved, that at the junior high level, that there would be outreach to each of the parochial schools in the area and ask them if they would like to co-op with us. I know St. George, at least I've had preliminary discussions with them, they would like to co-op. Because it's at the junior high level, it doesn't move your classification at the high school level for playoffs and that type of thing. But I do think that there would be junior high kids at the parochial schools would be very interested in co-oping in and having that opportunity to do that. That also would, I think, allow the school to incorporate those kids in a little bit earlier than they are now in terms of whether they would come here or go someplace else. So in terms of initial costs, I think we would be more than adequate to cover those initial costs. The field, I think, is really in pretty good shape. I don't think there's any slope issues there. I don't think there's any drainage issues there. I think I talked about it last time because I think there was concern about, okay, are there places in the field that holds water? And I went out there and I've got it written down what the date was, but we'd had about 4.5 inches over the previous 2 days. Right after the rain subsided within a couple hours, I was doing it. It's when I was much more serious about doing my track time. And I was doing track time and I said, I'm going to walk the entire field. And I walked the entire field and never hit a mud puddle or a water puddle. So there's good drainage in that field right now. So now there's things that has to be done there. The runways for a long jump and pole vault have to be moved. The proposal would be to move them to the west side and also to put in a third runway, because what I understand is you really need 3 runways in order to qualify for doing districts. And so that would qualify, that so it would be helpful for the program on the track side. You know, the one thing, the biggest commitment I think that the school would have at some point would be putting in the grandstand and press box. Because we're not going to be able to raise enough money to do that. I think in the short term, all of the portable bleachers that we use for the fair would be adequate, but at some point you're going to have to put in something much more permanent. And Russellville spent about $95,000 on theirs, and then they had, and that included the material for the press box, but they had volunteers that actually constructed the press box for them. So at some point that's going to have to happen. In terms of irrigation on the field, my proposal would be to buy one of those moving irrigation guns. You see those quite a bit. Estimate is about $3,000 is what that would cost, give or take, as opposed to putting irrigation under the field and bringing it up to that. So that would be the biggest expense. That grandstand is going to be the biggest expense going forward, because eventually you're going to have that. On the other hand, though, that's also going to be, I think, beneficial for the track program, and it also allows you to have other events on the field. If you have student assemblies or whatever you want to have outside, you'll be able to have outside. So, but the biggest expense and the biggest impediment to most schools being able to start football is a field, and we have a field, and that field is in great shape, in my opinion. I mean, all the poles, I think there's 3 poles on the infield, those will have to be moved. The runways will have to be moved. We'll have to put up goalposts. My proposal would be that we would ask one of the programs, the welding program at Lynn Tech, State Tech, to weld up those poles for us. And the estimate would be about $600 a piece for the materials in order to do that. So proposal would be, if this is accepted, that the first junior high game would be in September of 2022. So we've got about not quite a year and a half to do that. Gives the school plenty of time to get personnel in place, to get all the prep work done, and not rush everything, and also get kids excited about this if that's the reason or the direction they want to go. That's kind of the changes, I guess, since the last time. Everything else is in the proposal. I don't want to bore you by reading to you what I've already written. But I would certainly entertain questions, Dennis.
I have a question. My concern is the kid. Do you think we have the junior high kids that want to play football? That's because we're going to have how many kids do you think we'll have to have that want to play?
Typically,
I mean, what I'm asking is I know we had to recruit junior high basketball players last year, and we've had to recruit some other sports to get enough to field a team. And I'm just questioning, do you know, have you guys done a poll of the junior high kids to see if there's a level of interest there? Because money aside, I'm just concerned, like, I don't want to spend all this money, try to get a program going, and then it dies out in a year because we just don't have the kids to play. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're going to know where you're going to have the kids to play real early. And especially if you go to the other parochial schools, you're going to have a number of kids that don't go to school here that are also going to collect in and want to go up into that program. Russellville, which is a smaller school district than we are.
Correct.
And like I say, they have 27. Now that includes freshmen, okay, when they first started. And you know, what I've always thought is if you have 10 kids per class that are willing to play, what you're going to do is you're probably going to have bigger classes when you start, and then you're going to have kids that kind of opt out. But you're also going to have some kids that opt in. But when you get to the high school level, you need about 10 kids per class really to run a successful program. So just judging by where Russellville was, you know, without any parochial kids, that there are no feeder schools into Russellville, any parochial schools.
Right.
You know, like I said, they ended up with 27 kids in uniform. So I don't think you're going to have a problem in terms of it. I mean, it takes a while to build a program because there's no tradition here of football. And so you're going to have some kids that are getting really, really excited. And this is what Perry told me too. He said, you know, they started, I think, junior high program the first year with 24. And they had kids that wanted to play that their parents wouldn't let them, that eventually let them. And then they also had kids that didn't want to play that found out when things were going that wanted to get into the program. And they allowed kids into the program all throughout the season. They had 1,500 people at their first junior high game. I mean, there was a lot of excitement about the start of the program.
Right.
And I've got a couple of newspaper clippings that I've got. And I know it's an anomaly, right? You get a local school that has a first year program, but they were on the front page of the Jeff City paper 3 times. One when they had their first varsity game, one when they had their first homecoming, because they'd never had a fall homecoming before, and another time when they had another football game. So, you know, it is a different atmosphere. It does get you, both as a community and also as a school district, a lot of attention and media coverage that you never had before. You know, Football Friday Night is a big thing on Channel 13, and the 2 Columbia stations have the same thing, where they're going to the schools, they're filming, and you get a lot of publicity. And I think as a community and as a school district, you're at a different level if you have football than if you're not. It's the #1 spectator sport in the country, not high school, but just football in general. So, you know, it has remained popular. And I talked to our Riddell rep, and I said, what are you seeing? Are you seeing schools drop programs? He said, no. He said, now the only programs mostly that are coming on, you know, with the exception of a few schools like Russellville, are new schools. So for instance, when Battle opened, there's a new school.
Right.
When Capital City opened, there's a new school. So he's seeing those come on. But he's not seen schools drop programs. So once established, it tends to sustain itself, I guess, is it.
Question, but it's actually for Ed. How many, well, you help coach a team, right?
Yes, me and another, there's 2 Lynn coaches, playing on Jeff City League. I'm one of them.
And so how many kids do you have on those 2 teams, you think? And what age?
My team, last year, well, we played for 2 years now. We played at the 7, at the 2nd grade and 3rd grade. And I have on my team 8 local boys, on the team from St. George and a couple from public school. We didn't really advertise it in the public school. It was mostly just our baseball team that we advertised it to. And then Andy Warren, who's his co-coach? Andy Warren and his assistant coach fired up another team, but they're a year younger than us. So they were second grade this Higginbotham. Yeah. So there was a couple of Lynn kids on that team as well. Yeah, like best thing since sliced bread. I know we've got people that drive out to Owensville so their boys can play football. Matt Yutz is one to get all his family brought on board the school program and stuff, so we can play football. So I'm all about my boys, our boys from St. George being co-opted into playing junior high or freshman.
Thank you.
The other point I make here, and this is not different from last time, but I know the state supports the school with about $8,000 per year per student that attends. The total cost of the program after it gets started, so after the initial cost. According to Russellville, this software, including coach's salary, is probably for 15,000 per year, give or take. Now, once you get farther and farther into the program, you're gonna have, helmets are gonna have to be replaced and uniforms have to be replaced, so it's gonna go farther than that. But, even if you take and say, okay, well, that's 50% too low. So you're up in the mid-20s now, and you think about, okay, if one family with 3 kids move into the district for football, you've now broken even. Or on the alternative, if you have one family with 3 kids that doesn't move out of the school district because it doesn't have football. And we have known families that have done that, especially the Blair Oaks. And it was specifically for football. So if you don't lose those families, all of a sudden now, you've got the money from the state. Now that's on top of what we have that I've already mentioned in terms of increased real estate property taxes. So I think there is a compelling argument that this thing would actually pay for itself over time. One of the things that Perry said was right after they started football, their enrollment increased by quite a bit. He said, I can't tell you it was all because of football, but he says, I think at least a part of it was because of football. Kids that were either staying in the district or coming into the district because all of a sudden it was just a little bit more attractive. Football is not the be all and end all. Nobody wants a school that's a football school, right? But it's one of the extracurriculars that you offer. And there is no sport, at least for young men, that has more heavier participation than football. Because you have kids that play football that are not going to play any other sport. They may not be fast, they may be big kids. Well, there may not be a place for them in basketball. There may not be a place for them in track, but there is a place for them in football. You have, even smaller kids that are fast. They may not be basketball players, but they can be football players. So, and it's not just your players, it's your band. That's what, when I talked to the superintendent at Harrisburg, he told me that one of the benefits that they found was that their band participation increased because all of a sudden now they had a place to play in front of a crowd on football Friday night. So it became much more visible for them. Perry told me that what he found was that on some of his young men, when football started, disciplinary problems decreased because they knew if they didn't keep their nose clean, they weren't going to be able to participate, and they really wanted to participate. So he said, for some reason, for some of them, it was a real motivating factor, and a motivating factor that wasn't duplicated and replicated by anything else. So there's I think some subjective benefits, and there's some objective benefits to having it.
Tell you what we'll do, John, is we'll put it on next month's meeting as an item for discussion to look into it further. And we'll actually appoint a school committee. That's an extension of the board, just to get recent costs and those type of items, to update all the costs so we can figure out. And if we can work it into the budget, we'll see how it goes from there.
Dennis, I'd like to make a motion that we move to start football using the committee's timeline.
Usually motions are made from community input, but
They could be made by board members.
yeah,
A motion and second.
who's second?
Anna.
Yeah, seconded.
You need somebody for community input, you can use my name.
Use my name.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
You guys been stewing on these numbers for a year. I mean, it's no surprise.
The numbers have changed for you since last year.
How many games are you thinking you would, like you wanted to start this September 2022, correct? Okay,
Typically,
and you're gonna use 7th to 9th graders?
Right,
Is the
on
plan?
Very first year.
Okay.
And.
I'm asking. So we can use St. George kids, that's not against the rules of Misha, or we'll have to,
De-affiliate Misha at the junior high level.
we'll have to what?
De-affiliate with Misha at the junior high level.
Okay, so what's that mean for us then?
You just won't be part of Misha at the junior high level.
So we can,
On football.
on football,
Now it's gotta be across the board.
Yeah, they would have to sign up, as I understand it, and they pay a fee. The parochial schools will pay a fee to admission in order to go out with.
so what,
the public
you're
schools.
that, Clay, you're the athletic director, so let me ask you
Like right
this.
now, we're affiliated with Misha at the junior high level, so I'd be paying overall fee to be a member of Misha.
So if St. George pays the fee, they would join,
I don't think you have to. Just gotta be a member for any sixth graders, because I know a lot of schools do it for basketball reasons too.
they do,
Some smaller schools that, can't fill the basketball team, they won't just, they won't be affiliated with Misha. Oh, okay, well, then they're gonna get permission from Misha, I would assume.
we'd have to do what?
Get permission from Misha, I would assume. I don't know, I've never had to try to do that. So you have to apply for a co-op
Okay,
for Misha, and then they're gonna have to go through and look at St. George's enrollment numbers, our enrollment numbers, and see if we can match up for a co-op at the junior high level.
okay, but it won't affect any of our other sports, or will it?
No, it would not be at a high school level, we would not co-op anything at the high school.
Correct,
Could they still be covered with the insurance and all the stuff? The insurance part, if we co-op with St. George, does the insurance cover? Or is that going to be something? Well, if we didn't get a co-op, but we might get some students from St. George that moved to our school too.
Getting a co-op is not that large, and the expense is very limited because when we checked into it, the liability insurance is very, very small dollar amount. I mean, less than $500.
When I talked to Lisa Groner, and she had reached out, I think, to the diocese. This has been 2 years ago, so hopefully things haven't changed. But yeah, they would have to be affiliated with Mission. They would have to pay a fee, but it's a very small fee. And then obviously R2 would have to agree to co-op with them. But once that co-op agreement, which is a standard agreement from my understanding, basically, is in place, then the St. George kids would be able to participate on a junior high program. That you understand.
St. George does it for track already for 7th and 8th grade. They run Misha, so there's like small people that learn experience with it.
And I don't think it would be just St. George. I mean, I think Frankenstein, I know there's not many kids there, there's not many kids in Sacred Heart, but there's other area parochial schools. Some of those kids, like Frankenstein, do live in the R2 district. Some of the kids from Ridge Fountain do live in the R2 district, because they kind of split both ways now. Most of those kids are in the Bath district, but there are some that are actually.
what's the initial cost for the school then? I know you got $60,000, correct?
I'm sorry,
You got $60,000, correct?
we've got 60 plus the fundraising that we're going to.
Right, so, well, right now we have 60,000 in hand, basically. We can, because I don't want to go off of what we're gonna do, because we don't know what we're gonna do yet. We know we have 60, so my question
And then
is,
as a bank, we have committed to buy a full scoreboard too.
okay,
So that'd be about another 10, give or take.
all right, perfect. So what my question is, you're gonna use that 60 to start this program, correct?
Correct.
What's the cost that's gonna cost the district, us, at the beginning to get this started? That you would, what's, you know what I'm saying? I don't know if it's in here, if I'm not looking at it right.
Yeah, when I ran the numbers the last time, and I was cutting back on some stuff just to make the budget work, but I was able for a little bit less than 50,000 to make this thing run.
Okay.
Not including grandstands.
Right, I'm talking for us to start,
Regular operating expenses.
right, I'm talking, I want to see where we're gonna be at, starting on your timeline of September 2022, is that what you said?
About a year and a half.
Year and a half from now. So you have the 60 plus whatever else we can get. I'm wondering how much does the district us have to come up with to help with that start?
There shouldn't be any money. We should be able to get this thing started. What you will have is you will have salaries.
Correct.
Coaching salaries.
Coaching salaries, right,
Transportation.
and transportation.
Transportation, you ought to be able to have a pretty good idea what that is, because you have transportation costs for other sports.
Right, correct.
And there's not that many away games. You gotta remember, there are only 4 to 5 varsity away games a year and 3 to 4 junior high varsity away games. And if you have a junior varsity program, enough kids for a junior varsity program, you'll probably have 3 or 4 away games for junior varsity also. So you're not talking about a lot of trips because there's just not that many games.
Okay,
But those would be the big ones. Now, there's a couple of unknowns. So at the fair, the last year before, we went out and just, because all the lights were on.
correct.
And just to see in the evening, okay, is there enough light for football? It's passable, but it is not ideal. So at some point, there's going to have to be an upgrade on the lights. Now, the good news is there's a set of lights on each of those poles, and the poles are there. And there are crossbars, at least one set of crossbars on each of those poles to put another set of lights. So, but I can't tell you what those lights are, but I know that LED lights are not that expensive. Poles are expensive. Putting lights up and putting them correctly can be expensive, but I think that either Three Rivers or State Tech or UE. Are you guys UE or are you Three Rivers?
Three
Or Three
Rivers.
Rivers.
So Three Rivers I know has been great about doing this. So if they have equipment that will resell, I gotta believe that they would donate that time and equipment in order to put those lights up, but I can't tell you what those lights are, how much they are. I know you can go out to like Musco and you could spend a fortune on light, but that typically means you're putting new poles up and you're getting, all new, whereas you've already got your electric run, your poles are there, you've got your crossbars there. All you gotta do is put your lights on. So that's gonna have to be, and there being maybe enough at 80,000 or thereabouts even to pay for that, but I do not have that number right now. But
Tidy.
right now, it's passable.
To your question, I think the question is, can we get through this first year or two and see, and not lose money? And it looks to me like.
Where I'm at with, I'll be honest, where I'm at with it is, I would like to see, I'm worried about the kids. Do we have enough kids to play? And that's straight up honest, because we've tried to bring back sports that we have programs for. And I know football is a different thing completely, but we have a youth soccer program that we've run soccer all the way up through. We went to the high school level, what, a year or two ago, I think it was. Knowing we have kids that,
It's been a long
Yeah, it's
time.
been about 3-4 years.
we tried to bring it
Tried
back.
to bring it back.
What it was we tried to,
That was within the last 3 years.
Was that was before you?
10 was the last who's AD that got.
It's been 10 years at least. since-
Man, it hasn't been 10 years because I haven't been on the, no, we haven't had soccer in 10 years. What I'm saying is
We brought it back.
we tried to bring it, you were on the board then.
Yes, because we brought it.
We tried to
back.
bring it back, knowing we have a program for it, and we couldn't get enough kids to even say they wanted to play.
I think
and-
3 to 5 kids showed up at the
Meeting we had.
meeting to
And
start it.
I'd hate to say, what,
I have a team of 15 that want to play.
that want to play football?
No, they want to play soccer.
I want to play soccer now. Yeah, I mean, that was the issue a couple years ago. We just couldn't get enough kids to I mean, they wouldn't show up to the meeting. And my biggest concern is we're gonna throw all this money into this and change the, move our track stuff around and do all that. And then come season, well, yeah, some of it needs to be done anyway. I agree. But I'm just concerned about throwing money out there and then a year from now, we're disappointed. Because we don't have enough
Fortunately, it's
kids.
not our money.
Well, right, at this point, that's why I'm trying to figure out how much it would be out the district the first couple of years, just in case that would happen.
Sure.
That's why I was asking you
Sure.
about that. So that's my biggest concern is, do we have the kids to play? Because you can say how much football is great. I came from a school that had football, and that's great, and it does a lot for the community, but if you don't have anybody to play, it ain't doing anything. You know what I mean? And that's my biggest concern.
I
Is
don't even think in a couple years I'll soccer. My son plays soccer right now, and he's like one of two boys that play on soccer team at that age level. So in 2
Right.
years, you might have all the boys now, but you won't in a couple of years. It's
Yeah.
all girls on that team. Then he's 9, so.
And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that we don't have there's not like in junior high basketball, you play junior high basketball because eventually there's high school basketball. And, I would say we started the junior high volleyball program a couple of years ago, and that's helped our volleyball program because the kids have something to look forward to.
Well, like I mentioned earlier, you've already got, 15 kids that are traveling around to try to find football programs. And I'll speak for myself, like St. George kids, they have to find a school to go to after 8th grade. Is Lynn gonna have the stuff for them, or are they planning?
Right, and
they're gonna come here? I know a couple classes ago, most of the kids went up to Jeff City because Lynn didn't have what they wanted.
That's the same problem with soccer. I have kids leaving the district because they want to play soccer.
Yeah, I mean,
So I would respectfully ask that before you just shove this down our throats as a community, that you actually go back to your school district and ask your parents who have to take the kids, who have to buy the extra, who have to have all the extra running around time for their kids, what their children are interested in. Just don't make a motion and push it down our throats. Ask your community. I'm wonderful. There's money coming in. That's fantastic. People will move to the community. Where are the kids gonna play? Are the parents gonna take them? We have the same problem with soccer. Come down on a soccer Saturday and we've got hundreds of kids down there, not just 15. But before you shove it through our throats, please ask your parents. Are their children
I think we
interested?
did that.
Would they leave the school district if we didn't have it? What are they interested in?
And I ask, if you guys ask people, don't hide it under a million questions.
Exactly.
Flat out ask. Last survey had so many different questions, and I was just like, what?
What did
And the kids were asked, the way it was asked was horrible. Confusing.
Put out a simple survey. Are you interested in soccer or football? Would you spend the time bringing your children to practices? Would you spend the time bringing them to games? What is your interest level? Would you be interested in leaving the school district if we did not have that available? Just simple questions. And don't squeeze in a 4-day school week.
Yes.
When I talked with Perry, and I think those are good comments, but when I asked Perry, hey, how did you guys get started? What was your kind of protocol for doing all this? And he said, look, I had parents that said, we gotta have football, and been that way for years. Didn't do a survey. He said, I knew we would have enough kids. And he was right. They had plenty of kids, especially that first year they came up with some program. And like I say, and it increased his enrollment. Again, he said, I can't guarantee it was because of football. He said, but I will truly believe that at least in part it was because we were adding that program. And in Polk County, they were, well, I guess they and Eugene probably the only two programs that are 2 school districts that did not have football already. So, it was important for them to be able to hold people there in the community. And I personally have known families that have left this community to play football. Especially if you go to the Blair Oak School District. And they have said, if we had football here, I would not have left. So I think there's a compelling reason that you got to start the program.
Do we have to commit to?
I'm sorry.
You
Like
gotta
if we
ask the
start
parents
this program, do we have to commit to
Yeah,
a certain
start
amount
it,
of years
show up.
to keep ourselves?
I
in the
saw
program?
American kids grow up.
No, any
dreaming
year that you can't
of
afford
playing
it,
soccer.
it goes away.
American kids don't grow up dreaming
So we can,
of professional soccer players.
so what I'm saying is,
They dream of playing baseball.
I'm worried about like,
I can amend the motion to
Be the next grade.
reevaluate after 22-23, after we played our first season of junior high football. If that would make you feel better.
my concern is we're gonna start this thing in motion, get into it and then be like, how do we stop it? You know what I mean? Because
We're not gonna know until we.
I know, and that's
the hard truth
that's the
of
hard
it.
truth of it, to be honest. That's where I'm at with it. It's like, man, I love the idea of it and stuff, but it's just the money issue, the logistics of the people. Are we gonna have enough? You put the district in a,
Well, you're getting a substantial financial donation.
well, that's,
At the
yeah,
first
I
end of it,
understand that.
You get some improvements to the field, you get some stuff moved around and all that stuff. If you end up not having enough kids to put in, the district's not out shit, so, state tech,
Man, money is there.
I'll have egg on my face.
improve some stuff for the school district at your worst case. At your best case, people start moving in and enjoying the program.
Another consideration too is if you offer a new boys sport, you have to offer a new girls sport also.
Well,
Did you guys?
I don't think so.
Junior high volleyball?
because right now, in terms of fall sports,
have more girls.
Do we? Okay.
the only Michigan
A problem we have is
sport for fall,
the fall
for
baseball,
boys is cross country.
which
I mean, I know you have fall baseball, but that's not a Michigan, fall is not a Michigan approved. So right now you have volleyball.
That's something we would have to
softball, and cross country.
look
for
into
girls
in the
fall,
future because
And you got cross country for boys, and
you
that's,
would have to cut out fall baseball on the varsity level.
but this,
That's not.
fall baseball is not Michigan approved for fall.
No, it's just an extra, it's just, which right now that wouldn't be an issue because you're not using, you would not, the kids that play fall baseball are freshmen or high school. And this is junior high. You'd probably have a couple freshman boys that probably wouldn't play baseball if they were playing football would be my, that would be something we'd have to look into in the future. When we reach the varsity level, according to the plan here, which would be September 2023, when we start getting into ninth grade and to 11th graders, you'd have to look at our fall baseball program because that is taken away from.
I just didn't want to compete against them and have to.
That's what I'm saying, like, right now we would be okay. You would lose a couple freshmen, which I wouldn't think would hurt the fall baseball program too much, because I don't know how many freshmen or how many eighth graders we're gonna play. And that's not until, well, shoot, it's not gonna start football until 2022 anyways.
Russellville had fall, baseball, it's gone.
Yeah,
That's what I'm saying. That's something we'll have to look at in the future, but That's-
because they didn't have enough kids.
that's what I'm saying. But right now we're okay because you're talking junior high kids for the first.
Although again, the way they did it, and what I would suggest would be to try and include freshmen in that first cohort, just so that your freshmen get a year under their belts before you start into a year.
No, I agree with them. The more kids we can get on one team, the better. The more
And
grades.
like I say, Perry said, every school that they played junior high agreed to allow that because they knew, hey, these kids were absolutely green. They'd never played football before, tackle football anyways. So yeah, your fall sport, your fall baseball, if this goes away, and you have a cost savings. I don't know how much you're spending right now on fall baseball, but that expense goes away.
Oh, we need to get moving. We have a motion. We have a second. All in favor, raise your right hand. 6-0. Motion carries.
That's with the amendment, correct? Or do we need to?
Do you want me to, I can formally amend it, that we'll reevaluate it after we have the first season of junior high football.
I'd like to do that.
I think we passed it, but I don't know.
I thought we were
I
gonna
don't know what
amend
the
it.
Roberts rules
Right,
are.
I don't think the amendment's necessary because you can reevaluate it anytime.
We can do that
As a
anyway,
board.
right?
We can do that anytime.
Okay, that sounds good to me. I'm okay
For,
with
for
it.
instance, if the money doesn't come through to be able to afford all the uniforms or afford setting everything up, you can also vote as a board vote to hold back up the program.
I would ask that you, since you're going to start this fundraising, I would ask that you come to the board and give us an update on what's going on with your process there.
First of all, thank you very much. I mean, I think this will be a great thing for the community, for the school. For the kids. But secondly, could I have a liaison from the school that we can work with as we set this all
I
up?
agree
Because
with that.
This is going to be a school function.
Right.
We've got a number of volunteers that are more than happy to help out. But I need at least one liaison. And then we would be more than happy to provide regular updates to the board. I think that's more than fair. So you know, I don't have to know who that is tonight, but if you could reach out to me, I would really appreciate it.
I would say, John, it will probably be our athletic director. That's what makes logical sense. And since we have a new AD starting next year, I can get you his contact information, but it's not something that's just currently here right now.
Okay. Because we really like to get started. I know it
Well,
sounds
and I
like a
don't-
long time, but
I was gonna say, for now, you and I can communicate until he comes on
Okay.
board, but I think I can tell you that I think that it will transition to him, because that's what makes sense as far as scheduling games and, you know, all of that. But for now, you and I can communicate on that, and then once he gets started, we'll just transition it over to him.
okay, thank you.
We can sit down with him together and tell him where we are.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on. Approval of the consent agenda. Consent agenda consists of the regular open session minutes from the last board meeting and the FFA's requesting a trip to St. Louis.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
Oh, Lori.
Oh, man.
Naomi, okay, do I have a second? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Transfer and payment of bills. Did anybody have any questions on the bills when you look through them? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer and payment of bills.
I'll make a motion to approve the transfer of benefits.
Motion from Lori,
Second.
second from Sean. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Motion carries. Reports, elementary report.
Our attendance, we're holding there at 304 from April to May with our numbers. We still have two students that have been all semester in the launch program. Some of our celebrations and highlights, map testing is complete. 3rd through 6th grade worked very hard. We're very proud of them, the work that they did. And then we celebrated the trip to City Park last week. And we appreciated Legends Bank and Sweetie Shaved Ice, who helped to bring the kids a snow cone that day. So the kids love that. It's kind of a special treat for them. And so we're just pleased with the work that they did. The fact that it's done and checked off the box and all that stuff is headed out. Reading, just kind of want to give a little overview of where we're headed in reading and what's going on there. We do have 12 PD days set and 7 virtual PD hours set with Dr. Jill Dunlap Brown, who's going to be working with us next year and really doing some in-the-classroom training with our teachers. Our focus is going to be understanding of reading practices that are all related to the science of reading. And I was really pleased that our staff, our teaching staff, we had 100% unanimous vote to go forward with that. They're really in favor of this process. And so we'll focus heavily on our reading blocks and our intervention work and the 5 components of reading. We have Purchase Integrity, which is a phonemic awareness program that works with our lower, really you can use it for any student struggling with phonemic awareness. So we do have that already on hand. And we have done a webinar with Saxon, and we are planning to purchase that for our K through 2. And then we just felt like we needed a stronger core phonics program. And so Saxon is where we're looking to provide that. Adjusting our schedule a little bit so that our Title I staff can be more involved in the whole group instruction of that, so we can really get that off the ground and hit that hard next year and really beef up and work hard on our phonics and phonemic awareness work with our kiddos. DIBBLES is our school-wide dyslexia screener, and we'll use that benchmark with our K through 6 students. We have progress monitoring that goes on in between that, and end of year benchmarking will be a good baseline for us this year to see how our progress is next year. We have data meetings this year, but it's been primarily title staff with me. And next year we'll expand that with our grade level teachers and so forth as we really start to dig in and analyze our reading data. Typically we would hold a family night, but we weren't able to do that with COVID. So we did something through Facebook and got some pretty good response there. And we're pleased with that. We have 56 students that have completed that home activity and returned that to school. In math, we're gonna spend some time in June, taking a look at June, I think 14th, that we set to do some curriculum work in math. The teachers have worked really hard this year, aligning our standards and with what we're teaching to what DESI standards are. But we've got some work to do there. We'll work on that in June. We've got some that are going to continue with some Go Math resources, and others looking at some other resources as they really understand more what their standards are that they're teaching at each grade level, and are looking through the lens of that when they choose their resources for their classrooms. Our data in math looked very good with evaluated, so we had tremendous growth there, and we're just going to continue to build on that as we really look at aligning our curriculum. End of year activities field day was last Wednesday. Students participated in many activities and moved through stations. Special thanks to Breyer, Hancock, Joyce Everett, and Robin Baker. Really worked hard to organize that event. Students just had a wonderful time. Park days we're going to have this week, a little fun over at Alliance Park. So students to get out and do a little bit of playing and have some lunch over there in the park, and just kind of fun end of year activities for them. Awards, we'll have that on the last day of school. We have invited parents to attend those award ceremonies. We scheduled between the multipurpose room and the gym. Invite parents in, just ask them to wear a mask, and we're asking them to social distance that day. Big thank you to Charlene Peters. She's really been great in helping us with some of these end of year activities, getting our lunches going and getting those sack lunches ready for our kiddos. And then I just want to kind of mention our PTO meeting coming up May 20th is when I believe they rescheduled that meeting for at 6 p.m. and just encouraging all parents to attend, especially with COVID. It's been very difficult to get parents involved in our school. We really want to encourage parents to come on board, and we've got some new people jumping in there to be officers, and really want to invigorate that team and get some more parent school community action going with our PTO. So I encourage them to come to that. They did do plan to purchase some shorter basketball goals, and we'll get those. I think our maintenance staff get those installed this summer. So our little guys have a little bit more to do out on the playground with the basketball hoops. So a couple of events coming up there, and the last day of school, and then summer school starting on May 25th. So any questions? Yes.
I noticed your numbers, totals are ticking up. Do you see any particular correlation? I mean, it looks like the virtual numbers are down, so it's not something like they were home and they just showed up. But
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know why they're ticking up a little bit, but they sure are just real slow progress, but we are moving up. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Thank you, Tracy.
All right, thank you.
High school report?
Enrollment's staying about the same. We dropped off a little bit. We had a couple students moved out here lately. We did have one student come back to the district at the end of last week, and she's not on this report here. Discipline's being about the same. Students are, as far as discipline goes this year, I've been very pleased with the way our students been reacting. There's been a whole lot of discipline issues all year long, so that's very good. Events, a couple of things have been going on here lately. We had our FFA banquet, Ms. Nearhelm, Mr. Shepherd did a great job dividing it up and making sure that was put on accordingly. They used the field house, they're able to spread out, all that kind of thing. As far as COVID, Ellie Lynette was selected for the Area 14 FFA Sentinel for the 21-22 school year. So that's a big honor for her, a big achievement for her. She had to go through some interview process and all that to get to that part. So it's a very neat thing. Ms. Sherman had a band concert with 6th and 7th grade band students down in City Park on April 25th. So that was a Sunday afternoon. That's a pretty neat event that we were able to put on for the community at the time, and the students to go down and participate in, encourage that excitement for band and that participation in band. Ms. Glenn and Mr. Fick did a great job of organizing, running, putting together the prom committee for prom on May 1st at the Union Manor. They organized it all the way through from the start to the beginning. Ms. Dockerman came out prom night. They all helped supervise all of that, did a great job. Abby Clevo was named prom queen, and Brad Owen was named prom king for this year. And then we get into last week. As everyone knows, it's very, very busy last week. On Tuesday, one thing I did not put in here, we did do our field trip day for our middle school students. Normally we'd go to St. Louis with the 8th graders, and the 7th graders would stay locally. They usually went over to the prison and Just City, that kind of thing, and do a field trip. We decided earlier in the year, and we weren't gonna be doing field trips. So we did the next best thing, and we brought in the Army National Guard, and they set up the big blow up obstacle course type things and things like that. I got a lot of really good feedback from the students. I was kind of worried that they weren't going to, they're gonna be upset that they didn't go to, what's the St. Louis Museum and all of that. I was kind of worried that they're gonna be upset about that, but they seem to enjoy that. And they seem to respond really well to having things here. So at least we're able to have something. Started out that morning, it looked like it was gonna rain, so we moved over to the elementary gym. Thank you. Elementary allowed us to use that. And then the 12th, so last Wednesday, our seniors continued that tradition of going out and helping with field day. I think that's a really neat tradition that we have here, and seniors like it, or they might not admit it, but they do really enjoy going out there and doing that. The elementary students, I think, respond pretty well to that. Now, elementary teachers get to see those seniors for that one last day and maybe have a little side conversation, that type of thing with them. We had senior award night, and recognition night on that Wednesday night. Well, all the way through, recognized over $500,000 worth of scholarships, not including A+ scholarships on top of that. So there's a lot of really good things that happened there. We had senior breakfast and practice, and then along with that, we had the senior hall walk last Thursday. Once again, that's another tradition that's been going here for, at least since I've been here. I don't know if it started much before I got around here or not, but it's a really neat tradition. Seniors like that as well. We're actually walking through the halls, and the seniors that are walking right behind me said, are we going the right way? Yeah, I'm pretty sure we are. We're gonna go over here to the elementary now. Just follow me. So, but anyway, they do enjoy that. Baccalaureate at St. George on last Thursday night. We worried a little bit about the parking at first, because St. George also had their graduation, or not graduation night, they had their awards night. It worked out well. Parking ended up being fine. Other than a slight malfunction with operator error on the music and slideshow, it went pretty well. I did not go up and sing like the senior suggested.
For which we were all very thankful.
Yes.
Yeah.
Graduation on Sunday, everybody on the board was, well, went really well on Sunday, all the way through. I thought that we got a lot of good feedback from that. Of course, we're into the last week of school. So tomorrow night, we have our awards, academic awards for the sophomores and juniors. And then Thursday, we have our 8th grade promotion graduation. Friday is last day of school. Any questions?
Thank you.
You love your field day. Your field day is a pretty exceptional tradition. I know I've got a senior and older girl that always remember that, so thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for finding a way to make those traditions so.
We have another report. I won't forget golf this time. Golf, they were the conference champions for the Shirley Conference. They won 2 of the win quads. They, as a team, played second in districts, which 3 of them qualified for state, which was yesterday and today at Silver Ridge down in Mulligan. Alec got 8th, so that honored him all state, and then Jet tied for 47th and Britt tied for 55th, which both those 2 are freshmen, so that's pretty impressive to go down and play well with the golf team. It's just good going forward for the golf team, having 2 freshmen qualify. In baseball, after last night, they're actually 12-9. They won the winning tournament, and actually they're supposed to play tonight, got rained out tomorrow night, so they play at Houston for the district championship game. I guess looking at 4 o'clock if they want to use it, rest of the support those guys. I'll be down there in red. And then track, we had 4 events qualified for sectionals. We had the 4x8 girls relay, which is Ramsey, Chapler, Eric Platt, Ellie Manette, Meyer Baker, and then they qualified for state this Friday. Myra was at sectionals for the 800 meter. She qualified for state as well in that event. Ramsey ran the 1600 meters. She did not qualify, but she did set a PR, so that was positive. And Zach Dodson participated in the pole vault sectionals, and he also qualified for the state meet, which was Friday. So,
Is it just one day or is it 2 days?
they moved it to one day this year for some reason, which kind of seems unfair for people that are qualifying. But
As I say, usually it's,
They're just running class 2 on Friday and then class 1 on Saturday, instead of running both classes both days.
oh,
So they're just combining everything.
I was gonna say, it's usually 2 days. That's why we said one.
been pretty successful spring and fall sports. So.
Yeah.
Very much.
Superintendent's report.
You have my report in the packet, but just to highlight a couple of things, we do have finals going on this week at the middle school and high school. Also on May 11th, State Tech came over and we had a signing day for all of our students who were attending State Tech. It was awesome. That's so great to highlight our kids like that. And so that was a really neat thing that day as well. Mr. Bible already touched on 8th grade recognition. Right now, we, as you know, summer school is set May 25th to June 25th. When I talked to Mrs. Williams today, between elementary and then what we've got at the high school level, I think we're up to like 390 some kids for summer school this summer. So we have some really good numbers this summer. We have right around 45 of those kids are signed up for personal finance at the high school level. And then we have some also doing A+, and then some who are doing personal finance and A+, because personal finance is only half a day. And so then they're doing A+ the second half. So all together at the high school level, we have about 70 kids. So that leaves us around 320-ish at the elementary level. So some really good numbers for summer school there. Again, some of those things are repetitive, so I'm not going to go into great detail, but hats off to Mr. Bible and his staff. They've done freshman orientation and they did 7th grade orientation, which I know is always very important for those kids as those transition years happen. We will have our end of the year lunch on Friday. I sent that to you all Friday at noon. And we'll give our service awards then. You all are definitely invited to come if you're able. We would love to have you. I will have our recommendation to the base tonight. And then Mrs. Kingsley already touched on PD opportunities in the month of June. Summer maintenance list, we've got that underway so they can get started just as soon as they absolutely possibly can. Again, as I mentioned before, we're looking at high school roof replacement. And the good news, which doesn't always happen in facilities and maintenance, is the HVAC unit at the high school that I thought I was going to have to completely replace, they repaired. So we've managed to keep it moving along for a little bit longer. But that whole system, it's got some wear to it. So at some point we'll be looking at replacing that as well.
Thank you. Okay, moving into the discussion. First item up is the CARES Act spending update.
I just wanted to give you all an update on what we've spent this year in CARES Act money. Starting with county CARES Act money, we spent, I swear, when things upload to Google Drive, my numbers get all off, but we did get $121,429.93 from the county. The vast majority of that was spent on Chromebooks, but we did offset some summer school expenses last year with that money because we really decreased our class sizes so that we could spread the kids out a lot more. And so we did offset some of those expenses. ESSER 1 money, we've spent $96,150.20. Of that, when they first started giving us CARES Act money, the parochial schools proportionate share was also given to us, but then their expenses also had to flow through us. With subsequent grants, they've given the parochial schools their own portion, and then they don't have to flow through us. But with ESSER 1, they had to flow through us. So St. George's portion of that was $19,718.48. Again, you can see a lot of that money went to Chromebooks, access points, Go Guardians. The Kajeets are the mobile hotspots that we purchased. We purchased some educational software with that. Launch is the provider that we use for virtual. So that came out of CARES Act money as well. And then, of course, we spent a little over $18,000 just on cleaning supplies, water bottle filling stations, PPE, that kind of thing. And we will spend about $3,800 of that money in summer school transportation this year as well. The CARES Act Access Grant was a grant that had to specifically be used for access, technology access, and it was $8,000, and we had an $8,000 match. But that other $8,000 match could come out of ESSER one funds. So that's why you see some of that in ESSER one funds as well. But through the access grant, we purchased, again, hotspots, access points, and our Go Guardian monitoring software. And then the final one that we got this year was transportation money. We purchased some temperature screening devices for our buses, some additional car seats for our preschool age kiddos. We paid for some handicap transportation out of that. We'll pay for a little bit of summer school transportation out of that. And then again, St. George had a portion of that was $2,140.85. So grand total, what we've received and spent this year for CARES Act at this point is $237,583.12. That breaks down how we spent all of that.
Thank you.
I'm curious, and has nothing to do with the numbers. Did the temperature screening devices ever catch a kid on the bus getting on with COVID or not?
Well, funny story. Not really. If you don't set them right, they catch every kid that comes on the bus, just in case you want to know. So the answer to that would be yes, but we did catch a couple. I can't say that there were tons, but then I don't think there were tons of kids.
Did the couple kids have COVID?
Yeah, well, let me rephrase
had
that. They
fever.
had fever.
Okay.
I don't know that they had COVID, but they had fever. But they make this noise. And so the very first day that we had them, I mean, there's settings in them and it's a learning experience. So one of the drivers didn't have it set right. So every kid that got on the bus, it was reading and sending off an alarm, and they're calling and saying, what are we supposed to do with those kids? And I said, bring them to school. We'll figure it out. So but there were a few that we caught with fevers, but whether they ended up having COVID or not, I didn't really track that.
Okay, moving on to discussion on the mask mandate.
I just wanted us to discuss this a little bit because summer school is coming up. And although we do not have a mask mandate currently for elementary age kids, we do for high school age kids. And I would like your input into whether or not we're going to continue to make them wear masks during summer school. I'll tell you my recommendation, but I just need to know where you want to head. Excuse me.
With that, the new CDC guidelines, I know even at our work, we don't wear them anymore, so it's like, right. And
Yeah, I
kids
would
down to
say-
age 12 now can get vaccinated.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we, even at my work, they've changed the policy on that too.
Optional if they feel like they want to wear one.
I would just, yeah, I'm okay with just making it optional.
Other school boards in the district have dropped it for somewhere.
Yeah, and that's fine with me. I just want to make sure that I touch base with you all. That was a big percent.
Yeah, I mean, I would just make it optional.
Okay, moving on to discussion regulation 1420, which is use of facilities.
So I wanted to discuss this because we have and have had individuals who have requested to use the facilities. And the way the policy reads is it says for the meeting of organizations of citizens, which to me means an organization. And then it also towards the bottom says no use of equipment shall be granted unless an instructor or attendant approved by the board is in charge of the rooms or equipment. And I just want to know what you all want to do with this. We do have an individual right now who would like to use the facilities and use some equipment. One of the things that I gave you guys a copy of the facility use agreement because that was also adopted by the board, I think, in 2019. So we have the regulation and the policy, and then we have the facility use agreement, both of which were adopted by the board. So I don't want to go against something that was adopted by the board without your input. So my question is kind of threefold. One, are we going to allow individuals access to our facilities? Right now, the way it is it has to be an organized group, an organized, like a house league or archery team or chess club or something like that, an organized group. The other thing that it says, and this is why you go with organized groups. The other thing is that I know our music liability, who is our insurance carrier, tells us that we have to have proof of comprehensive general liability insurance. And what they tell us is not less than $2 million per occurrence, which names the institution as an additional insured. So one, are we going to let individuals use the facility? Two, if we are we going to hold them to that $2 million per occurrence general liability insurance? And then three, are we going to let them use school equipment? And again, I'm not going to do something that's against board policy or board approved documents without your input into that. So,
Haven't we allowed individuals to use the facilities in the past prior to COVID?
no, not individuals, not unless they were with a coach or employee of the district. Well, let me rephrase that. There was one individual that did in the past that I was unaware of until COVID hit and started shutting off fobs. That's when I became aware of that one.
Have we had a problem with vandalism or neglect?
We did it. There was, I don't, you probably, Dennis, you're probably here. That's kind of why we changed the policy a little bit. We had an issue where we had too many fobs out there, or keys out there. We didn't know who was doing what, and somebody used the facility and messed up the floor. And then we couldn't figure out who it was. I think it was the floor, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And we couldn't figure out who it was. And so that's why we kind of wanted to start keeping track of who was using it. But I think that was the only issue. And it was more of an issue of no one wanted to own up to who did it. You know what I mean? And we had to pay for the floor to be fixed. At that time, I think it was just keys, because this was years ago, and it was a baseball. They were doing baseball practice in there, and they scuffed up the floor with the real baseball instead of using. I guess they used the soft ones in there. I'm not sure. Like, you know, huh?
Incredible.
Yeah, you would know. Yeah, they used the real one and messed up the basketball floor. And we didn't have any way to track it because all we had was keys at the time. And at that time, we didn't even know who had the key. Because we had coaches that probably left years ago or coached whatever, like pals or something, and then they never turned the key back in. So I think that was why it kind of changed. I don't think it was more of individual. I don't think we have any trouble since then, have we?
Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
Michael, you could probably.
Nothing major or anything like that. I think we've had a couple different times where some reason I want to say like the camera got hit one time, like that camera on top of the.
Right.
Usually. And then maybe a light or something over here, but nothing major.
Always been my experience in education, and we're really good at it, creating rules for exceptions. I mean, I'd rather deal with the exception if it becomes a problem, deal with it when it happens, but I give you the discretion to use your own judgment. And that would be my position.
And my only concern, again, goes back to, we have a policy, and I don't want to violate board policy without the board saying, this is the direction that we want to go. And then if that's the direction we're going to go, at some point, we probably need to change the policy.
But if you let an individual have a key fob,
They've been granted by the board.
I'm going somewhere with this. So if that individual has one and has free access to the gym anytime they want, any time of the day or night, I'm pretty sure, can you set times that key fob can be used only between a certain time? Because I know in the past they were using it in the middle of the night, whatever whim they felt to get up whenever and come in here and use the facilities. Can you set a certain time? Because if you give one person access, you're gonna have to give everybody access, anybody who wants it.
I was gonna ask, when people are signing up for these facility agreements, who's approving those and giving them fobs to use the facility?
This year, we haven't done any because we haven't let anybody have access this year. Last year and the year before, it was Mr. Bible as AD, who was the one that the forms went to.
So they went to me, approved, put on a calendar, and then from there, they went over to Connie or whoever to get Bob, Keith. My first year was Keith's, and then about halfway through the year, switch over to Bob's. That was all Bob's.
Can I just clarify real quick? Say if you restrict times on the fobs, say you shut it off at 10 o'clock, if someone, they could get in at 9:59.
Well, and still be there, yes, but
But,
you
well,
would know.
I know
that
what
they
she's saying.
clocked
We
in.
would know who
Opened
would
it
clock
at
in.
9:59. You would know that, that's where.
I think the issue is we've had some students that would come and shoot baskets ball, which is fine, whatever, at like 2 or 3 in the morning, or, they're at home and they get bored. And they're like, hey, man, let's go shoot some baskets. I just want people
Yeah, and
cruising
then
up
they
at the
let all
school. And
Their friends come in, I mean, there's nobody here. There's no adult supervision, they're in there, they could let whoever they want in at whatever time of the night, if it's a free-for-all. And I think that's happened before too, that they just go in and say, call their friends and say, hey, I'm gonna go shoot baskets, meet me there. Who's to stop that from happening? You may have 50 kids in there at
2 in the
midnight.
morning, yeah, or
Yeah.
midnight or whatever.
Well, regardless, you have to have an agreement. You've got somebody 21 or older there, I'm sure. I mean, I would think that would be minimum you would want to, if nothing, if you're granting an exception, I mean, I would make that a
That's, I
condition
think
of
we
my
need to, I
exception.
mean, because I know that's kind of what's happened before is I've got a fob, come on over, let's go shoot baskets at school.
Do we have cameras in places that we didn't maybe in years past or?
We don't have any in the gym itself.
You'd be able to see the entrance to the gym. So
Yeah.
Do what?
So you do know who goes
you
in
can see
and
the
out?
entrances.
So you know who
See
goes,
that fob entrance to the-
so you can see the fob entrance though, correct?
Yeah, you can see the fob entrance. to this gym.
I think there would be no problem with wanting to accommodate someone, whether it's a group or an individual, as long as we had certain guidelines for who was allowed to and when, and if we had to revoke fobs at some point because there was a violation, we have the ability to do that. But I don't necessarily have a problem with it being a group or an individual. I think the rules should be applied either way, whatever rules we pass.
So what about use of equipment and liability coverage? I can tell you from music's perspective, just to give you an example, if you go to a baseball game and your windshield gets hit by a foul ball, our insurance doesn't cover that person's vehicle because it wasn't negligence on our part. So that's why music says anybody who's going to use your facilities needs to have their own liability coverage, because if they go, I don't know, somebody goes in and decides they want to hit baseballs up with a batting cage in the gym, and somebody gets hit in the face with a baseball. As long as it's not negligence on our part, our music liability insurance isn't going to cover that. So that's why we say that those groups and organizations have to have their own insurance coverage.
There's a whole harmless agreement in here that they would have to sign to get a key fob.
Right. And that would, I mean, I would, if you did open it up to individuals, they would have to sign something that if they
Something.
fall down the stairs or
It's on them.
it's on them.
I can tell you that those old harmless agreements are in there.
There's one about as much as the paper. I've written on.
Yeah.
Do we have groups that are carrying $2 million in liability to use it, or are we
Well,
looking
again,
the
we
other way?
haven't had any this year, but we do require them to provide general liability insurance coverage.
Take the chess club, does the chess club have insurance? I can't imagine they do.
I was gonna say, I don't know that the chess club does, but more organized sports, I guess, is more what we look for, more those that have a greater chance of injury. And again, I don't, it's
Well,
either
it's-
way for me. I just need to know what,
When you rent the gym at the tech, at your school, I mean, like when you go in and rent, like if I want to rent a court for the day, what kind of agreement do you sign?
No, You're going to use it.
Right,
Yeah,
you're,
I mean,
yeah,
you paid us to use the facility,
okay, so,
or somebody, actually, and not always, I mean, some of the groups, person asked, no longer sitting in the back, but when we have big basketball tournaments, I'm guessing they carry insurance, but of course.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't know what that.
And again, it doesn't matter to me one way or the other. I just need to know how to proceed. That is in your wishes, even if it's not specifically what board policy says.
The thing I found, I wouldn't say tough, the thing I found interesting, I finally got through my board orientation. And how much they talk about facilities should be, and they go kind of overboard on it, how facilities should be used for the community. And so I walked away from that thinking, if we can bend over for backwards for people who want to use the facilities, we should in any way. we can.
Yeah, I don't have a problem if someone wants to come in and if they're trying to better themselves and then you use a facility that I mean, the Booster Club donated some of the stuff that's in there. I mean, I hate to take away from the reason why we have it.
So I just want to make sure I know what I'm saying. So we're okay with individuals using it, and we're not going to make them carry liability insurance. And we are going to let them use equipment.
I mean,
That's really up to you. I mean, what
Oh, no, no,
equipment,
no.
I wouldn't put that on.
I mean, what equipment options, and that's where I don't know. I mean,
There's
we don't
some
want them to come in here and
weights.
use your.
The
floor
weights,
for-
the shooting machine, there's a shooting machine.
Weights is a big one that I would
Sure.
keep. The shooting machine, the batting cages.
Yeah.
So
What's your-
have them list whatever they intend to use on that way you know what their intent is when they come in, so they're not just throwing out.
I would say the weight room would be off limits to individuals because I would not want someone in there by themselves lifting weights.
Sure, you need to bring somebody with you.
You need to bring somebody.
You need to have an adult with you.
Yeah, I would say in the agreement, when they sign, if an individual comes in, I would say, what is your purpose of using the facility? What things are you trying to use? And have them put that down, and then when they come in, you can therefore verify if that something was damaged, you would know,
So can we agree that I will rework this agreement
yes, I would,
and bring it back next month?
Mhm.
And in the meantime, the one individual that I have requesting for basketball purposes, we're okay to allow to use the facility.
yes, as long as he says what he's doing, what the reason they're doing it. And I would limit their times. I would say you can't be there
And
at
it's not
2 in the
typically
morning.
if, all of his friends come and
Yeah,
it's for him to shoot, if that's what his intent is.
And then I'll redo the agreement and we can look at it next month to see if it kind of says what we want it to say.
yeah, that would be, yeah,
Okay.
I don't know how everybody else feels, but I would say that'd be a good idea.
Okay, moving on to 8.4, food service company.
So as you know, we went out for bid for food service. And if you've never done that before, God bless those people, because I'm telling you, that is a process. So one of the things I wanted to show you was I put together some, just so I could compare apples to apples. For those of you who, in your board packet, you have copies of the Fresh Ideas stuff. They sent me an electronic copy. I was able to upload it real quickly. I did not scan and put in the whole OPA binder. I put in the main parts that were pertinent. But if you want to look at it, it's right here. So what I did for the two companies is everything else remaining equal in terms of revenue, how much our salary part was going to be, all of that. And then I put in, so if you look down here for next year, the projected $243,918 for Fresh Ideas. I just took our average lunch participation of around 432 meals a day times 146 days. That would give us 63,072 meals times their price point, which was 2.973, which gives us $187,513. I then took the breakfast and did it the same way and added those two numbers together, and that's where I got the 243,918. We then get commodity credit back, and what that is we get commodities, and those are free, so we get that credit back. So I use the same number as commodity credit for both companies, again, trying to keep everything else equal other than their price point. So with that, Fresh Ideas total expenditures came up around 252,493. If you look down at the bottom and you look at OPA, with their price point, it was $252,662, again, using the same number of meals just to compare apples to apples. And the total adjusted expenditures there was $261,237. So so Fresh Ideas had the better price point. When you look at the comparison compared to what we spent the previous 3 years, you know, it's right at or below what we have been spending in food service. I called several references for both companies. Where that is. And then one of the things we had to do in our food service program application. So when we first start this process, we have to send it to DESI. DESI has to approve us to go out to bid. One of the things that we have to do in that very first process with DESI is tell how are we going to rate these companies. And so we looked at cost, experience, and personnel management. So when I called on Fresh Ideas, obviously they had a better price point, so they got more points in cost. Experience and references, they aren't in as many schools, K-12, as what OPA is, so they lost a couple of points there, just because OPA does have a little more experience than they do. One of the things that was pretty important to me, I guess, was how they were going to manage personnel and what the people that they work with now said about personnel management, because the one thing that I want more than anything is to make sure that our employees are treated well. And I will say, every single reference that I called on Fresh Ideas had nothing but glowing things to say about their personnel management. OPA was not quite as glowing as Fresh Ideas was. I also have Shannon Fife here. She's in the very back in the green shirt. She's with Fresh Ideas, and I know would be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Sorry, Shannon has, I don't know how long she's been with Fresh Ideas, but she's been in food service.
It'll age me if I tell you that it's been around about 15, 16 years. I've been working in K-12 public food service. In different environments. I was actually an open employee for about 12 years. I've been with Fresh Ideas for 3. Really, really happy with Fresh Ideas. Not surprised me a bit that we had high references coming back. Because the company really does care about all of our employees.
And one of the things Shannon and I talked about, I can't remember who had asked me, but somebody had asked me previously, you know, why can they get employees that maybe we can't pull in? What makes them better at enticing an employee to come and work for them when we can't get them to come and work with food service for us? And one of the things that Shannon mentioned, which I honestly had really not thought of before, is, you know, if they come to work for us as a school in our food service department, the highest they're ever going to raise is food service director. And they're going to top out at food service director, and eventually they're going to top out salary-wise in that position. Whereas within a company, and I can tell you from just Shannon's experience, Shannon started out as a cook and just continuously worked her way up, and she's now the regional manager for Fresh Ideas. And so there's an ability to grow within the company and to move up, not only in position, but also in salary, that we just can't compete with as an individual district. So So my recommendation is to go with Fresh Ideas as our food service management company based on their references and their price point, cost of service. They just,
I have a question. So I think we had talked about that before, but our current food service employees, will they have the opportunity to work for the food service company?
yes, they will, and Shannon can even speak to that if you want to.
Specifically in your RFP process, we were specific on a couple of employees that wanted to maintain as your district employees. The rest of them, we will hire, and I believe we've added a cashier to your staff as well. And we may, when we jump in, may even bring on a few more on board just to make sure they're in good shape.
They really get 3 options every day for lunch.
We're gonna work with you guys. We're gonna make sure.
Okay, 'cause
we're providing you what you want.
But the price is the, like these sample menus.
Yes,
That
those sample menus is exactly what I would recommend you starting off.
They're gonna change the price of food for the kids, like individual.
Our prices will maintain in the district. And the district, and then any additional sales, what I consider a la carte sales, is anything purchased beyond a meal price. The district also receives profit coming back in from that as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm
And the
getting
meal
at.
prices themselves.
That's what I'm talking about, the
we
bill
have
price,
to
like,
do-
so my kids go to school here, or well, one of them does now, the other one left, but graduated. They actually graduated, hey, let me be specific. He graduated, yes. We were all there, he was there, right? And I kicked him out today, because no, I'm kidding. Because he turned 18 too, so I kicked him out, but anyway, no. What I'm saying is like the cost for Sadie's meal, would it be the same as it is now, or is it gonna go up
We
or down?
every year have to do what's called a paid lunch equity tool.
Correct.
And so every year we have to submit that to DESI. And if it's a whole formula thing, and they tell us whether or not our meal price is sufficient for our program. So can I guarantee meal prices won't go up? No, I can't. It will depend on what that. paid
Right,
lunch
but I'm
equity
saying
is.
like,
But it
we're
won't
not,
be a result of us going.
that's what I'm getting at. It's not a result of us adding fresh ideas.
That's totally specific to your deputy regs.
Okay.
Remember a couple of years ago where Desi directed us to raise. our
Yeah, I know,
meal price?
yeah, I remember that, but I didn't know because we're adding fresh ideas, we're gonna have to add whatever 50 cents to every meal now, because that's what it's gonna help the cost, whatever.
And next year, they have extended SSO, what does it stand for? Seamless summer option, thank you. So right now, we get free meals this year through the Department of Health and Senior
Right.
Services. Some schools get that this year through Seamless Summer. We have chosen to go with Department of Health and Senior Services because that's who we've gone through for summer school and a variety of things. Next year, Department of Health and Senior Services is not extending their free meal thing throughout the school year, but Seamless Summer option is. So next year, Elaine and I both already have it on our calendars to apply next year as well for Seamless Summer so that we can have free meals all year again next year. We have no reason to believe that we wouldn't get approved for that.
No, you should be approved, no problem.
Yeah.
SSO is gonna follow along with just your regular national school lunch breakfast program, same regulations, same everything. The only difference you guys will see from a district standpoint is the reimbursement through summer food and health department is a little bit higher than what SSO's reimbursement.
But I think that's, I'm sorry,
Go
Sean.
ahead.
But I think SSOs is higher than traditional.
Very, yes,
I
absolutely.
mean, like, so Seamless Summer reimbursement rate per pupil per meal is higher than if we were just running a regular national school breakfast or lunch program. So we will apply for that. We can apply for that again until I think it's August. And then we'll apply for that. And so hopefully our kids will get free meals all year again next year. They've extended that through June 30th, 2022.
We walk through our facilities, we don't need to make any upgrades to facilities, there's
Absolutely not.
no money spent,
That's
unless we have a breakdown.
Absolutely, that's correct.
The contract is just for 1 year at a time, that's the way I read it.
It's a 5-year contract, we you as the school board will renew every year. So if something happens in year 3, for example, say you're really unhappy with something we've done, you want to get rid of us, so you can do that at any year you like. You'll do a contract this year.
So
In
So it's one-sided, it's sided towards us. I mean, we've locked in the rate, but if we want to walk away after year one, we can walk away.
Got it. You could go back to sub-up if you wanted to go back out. In order to get like a different management company or scenario like that, you would actually go out and
And the reason it's a 5 years is because we have to go out for bid every
every 5 years.
So then in your 18-19 number, Dina, is that a 5-day-a-week number or is that a 4-day-a-week number? 301.
Yes, those would be 5 days, that would be a 5-day-a-week number.
So
yes.
we really need to take that times 0.8 to get a real number, which
Yes.
puts you,
So,
which at that point, we're gonna spend more. Not a lot more, but a
Yeah.
little bit more.
slightly more.
So to say we're getting it for less, we're not, and
Right.
we're gonna pay more.
It's very comparable to what we would be paying. So, for the water.
So then my next question was, so you're gonna pay people more than we're currently paying them, it looks like.
We're gonna match their salary to start with.
Okay, so the numbers that we saw in the proposal, you're not gonna actually pay them those.
I believe what you see on the proposal is in comparison to where they're at now, where we were guesstimating. So it's something that's kind of an unknown for us on the exact wages. So we did
Okay.
an estimate, but whatever they're making now is what we will match. And in some instances, we may do an increase. In addition to that, those employees that are coming on board with us would be eligible not only for their hourly rate, but they'll be able to collect unemployment over downtime. So whether that would be Christmas break, spring break, or summer. So they'll actually have an additional income beyond their hourly rate.
And then, so the way Dina calculated this, I mean, that's the way you would calculate it too, by taking the 432 per day times 146 days and the breakfast in summer, and that's all there is to it,
Yeah,
or
we
anything else there?
estimated it out, similar to how Dina did, approximately average meals a day, scenarios like that.
So you can do it for the same price as we are, because you're gonna have profit, overhead and so on. So you can do it because you're buying, is it the commodity, the food price, or?
We definitely probably have a higher buying power than we do as an individual school district. And then in addition to that, we will credit you back to the commodities on a monthly basis once they're delivered, write the check.
Now, the projected commodity credit on there, we get that in right now, right? Okay. Because, so we would have received what, roughly around 20 to
23,000-ish, I think it's kind of where you're at.
per year for the past 2 years as well,
But that's already taken out of there.
out of total expenditures.
Yes.
Yeah, but the 18-19 number has it in it, so if you take 18-19 times 0.8, which is what, 240,
241, 466.
so we'll see an increase of about 11,000. To not do it ourselves. And then your food is better, that's what I hear.
We have a whole team, a culinary council, and a full of chefs. You'll see them.
I think the biggest.
Go out, but chef hat, all work.
So now, why don't we why can't we post this position and try to fill it with a local person first?
So they will post it. I mean, you'll advertise the
People will
position
absolutely.
and try to fill it.
But without a middleman, why can't we post this position? If we have someone retiring, why aren't we posting the position to see who we could get first? Because, it looks like their bid has this person making roughly 13,000 more. I bet if we posted that position at that price, we'd probably get someone pretty good.
Only suggestion to you is in that process, it is tough to find a food service director that meets the professional standards for service director in rural areas.
I will stand up for Charlene. She produced magic in that cafeteria as far as how she bought the food she bought and produced the lunches she produced. I don't know how she did it. Because in the past, I know the directors really struggled with coming up with the correct kinds of foods and trying to fit it in the budget. Charlene was just, she was magic with it.
And I will say that even though those numbers are about $11,000 off, I don't know how much every year Charlene spends of her own money, but it's a significant amount of money that she spends of her own money buying things for the school food service program. The other thing about that $11,000 price point difference is this year we were a position short because we didn't have to do sale because we were free. So we didn't have to have somebody there running the register. So that $11,000, if we did it ourselves, is going to be more than the salary. We have to add a person, and especially if we're going to try to pay a food service director what they can pay them. Plus, in order to keep our quality employees, we're trying to keep up with the rat race of minimum wage, and that goes up again in January. So any of that $11,000 price point difference, plus increased cost of food, all of that would go away.
They would do everything.
But when Charlene took the job, however many years ago she was here, the requirements to be a food service director were different than they are now. And now they're much more stringent. So we can't.
So if you guys take over, or if we approve your, whatever, or approve you guys to do, you do everything, right? Order all the food, all that stuff, right? Get the bids for, get the bids for the milk, all that stuff.
Your job is what you just done. Through an RFP process, that's your procurement.
I mean, that right there. They're probably gonna get a better food cost because they're a bigger company than we can get.
There's an interesting one there. I can figure out on this, but what's your inflation rate? I mean, if you look year to year to year, do you know what off the top of your head? I mean, I can do the math and find out, but I'm one of those guys that thinks we're headed towards big inflation. I mean, it might be worth you taking the risk versus us taking the risk.
Every year.
I can tell you pretty quick.
Just for clarification purposes, I called Jesse to figure out what the requirements were. And for a school of our size, the minimum education standards for a school nutrition program director is a bachelor's degree or a bachelor's degree in any major, an associate's degree with at least 1 year of relevant school nutrition program experience, or a GED and 3 years of relevant experience in the school nutrition program. I think we can find somebody that
For
does
your
that.
size school, the professional standards require a GED and 3 years.
And they have a training June 9th and 10th, and they will, for anybody that we would hire.
Mark, I was kind of on the fence, but 3% inflation in food. I mean, I think that probably what makes the deal for me.
I think that it's not the director thing at all. I think we could find a director. My thing is, with this, we don't have to worry about trying to get food, trying to get milk. Because all that is I mean, it's, the food prices are going up. And like Strong said, if they take the hit, they take the hit, we don't, you know what I mean? I don't know. I mean, as long as they're willing to keep our employees that we have, if they want to stay, that was my biggest concern was I'd hate to look, like, if we have employees that want to stay here, they should have the opportunity to stay here.
Absolutely. And I have seen your facilities, and from what I've seen, your team, your food service teams are great, your kitchen, sanitation standard.
And that was my other, you asked that. My other concern was, do we have to make any upgrades? And if we do have to make upgrades, I guess that would be at the cost of us.
I don't see or foresee any upgrades in the near future that we need to make.
And that's all recorded, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, write that down. I'll remember that in a year whenever fridge goes
Well,
out.
we all know that we have a stove that even Charlene has
She magically made that.
magically makes work.
Yeah, I mean,
That's
there is,
not a guarantee, but it's working at the moment and working well at the moment.
my biggest concern is the food cost is gonna go up, and I think
And
it's
to be
gonna,
honest, that's my biggest concern, because food prices continue to go up and we don't have the buying power as a small district to keep those bids low.
I know it's not very many people, but will it make any difference on our insurance rate by pulling these people out of our health insurance?
So, and this is what Shannon was talking about, by we're keeping 2 people on our payroll, 1 person because she's vested in retirement. And when they move over to a food service management company, they will move over to their retirement system, but we only have 1 person who's vested in peers. So we'll keep her, and we only have 1 individual who takes our insurance, and we will keep her. And then as those, let's say, in 2 years, one of those people resigns, then the new person they hire in will become a Fresh Ideas employee and transition to them.
So we're only, I didn't look up. We're only keeping 2, and then
We'll
once,
keep 2 on our payroll.
and then once they quit, then
When we would hire.
you would hire the refund.
Within that 5-year contract, we would bill back that labor to you because we contracted the rates with those 2 employees of yours. If we replace that employee, we will bill back the labor to you, but most likely it will be a round rate of pay. And we'll still benefit as a district financially because our rate of pay will be more than likely lower than the long-term employee rate of pay was.
Last year's numbers are low because we weren't in session earlier. Okay.
As long as the menu comes out early enough. The menu. Make sure the menu comes out early enough, because I get a lot of complaints about people not knowing the menu right off the bat.
If nobody has any other questions, does somebody want to make a motion to approve the food ser or Fresh Ideas contract?
Make a motion that we approve the Fresh Ideas contract.
I have a motion from Ty. Do I have a second? Second from Lori. Any further discussion?
My only concern is our numbers were really very accurate. I mean, comparing years past to this year. So I
Yeah.
feel like that was pretty misleading. That is my only, that at this point, my only concern.
And I can take those all by point eight if you want to, and tell you what the, or I can even take them from.
I mean, I'd already done it. I wondered if that was the case, and I'd already done it, but to say that we're saving money by doing this.
Okay.
Long term, it may be though. I'm saying, I really do
Right.
think long term, it may be, but
In long term, it's going to be determined on price of food.
But
Okay,
we can
walk away from it next year.
Yep.
But I said we can walk away from it
Yep.
in a year, correct?
exactly.
So
Okay, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, raise your right hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Opposed? 1 opposed. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Thanks for trusting us. Some business cards, and please feel free to reach out anytime you get questions. We'll be in touch. Thanks, Dana.
Okay, moving to the student support program.
I just put this in there for your information this month and to ask, and then to put it on for approval next month. One of the things that we seem to be lacking at this point, I guess, is the opportunity for our teachers to do before or after school tutoring programs and get paid for those programs. And I put together a way for our teachers to be able to do that. Not only that, but in grades, third, fourth.
Yeah.
Third, fourth grade. We are required by law to provide tutoring for kids who are at grade level or more below in reading. And right now, that's an area that is lacking. So one of the things that we are requesting to do for next year is to provide an opportunity for our teachers to do some after-school tutoring. And some of the areas that we said, so they would have to develop a plan and say, this is what I'm going to do for my hours. And it has to meet in areas such as math intervention, reading intervention, writing, social studies, science, credit recovery, homework tutoring, test prep. And then I put other because it could be that something else crops up, and as long as it's okay with their building principal and with me, and there's a need for it, we might allow that. But we didn't want it to just be, I want to have open gym and get paid tutoring hours for that. It needs to be systematic interventions that help our kids. And so we had put together this proposal to do that, where they can get up to 35 hours at $30 an hour, paid tutoring time. And so again, that's something that I am going to ask you to approve next month. Overall, if it really does depend on how many people decide to participate. I have it budgeted out of ESSER 2 funds. So our next CARES Act funds, I have it budgeted out of there for next year as of right now. I guesstimate it'll cost the district around $40,000 at the most. I don't think it will cost that much, but I tried to go on the high end of that. But I wanted you to have this ahead of time so you could look at it, ask questions, see things that maybe we wanted tweaked or anything like that before we brought it next month for approval.
When does the workday end and the workday begin?
7:30 to 4:15 is the teacher.
So it would have to be after that time.
Yes, it would.
4 right?
44, yeah,
What was the start time?
7:30 to 4:15.
Along with this, are you, hopefully next year it'll be better, but do you provide, or do you think that we should provide any sort of additional compensation or something for all of the teachers that have to substitute during their plan periods?
We do that now.
Okay.
Yeah, they just turn their hours in at the end of each semester, and we pay them for that time.
Very good.
I think we probably did that a lot this year, didn't we?
I was gonna say, we've done it some.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I know every school I've talked to is having problems with subs and stuff.
So hopefully it'll get better.
Yeah, I hope so.
One thing I thought was, maybe it's normal, is the forms look like you waited until the very end of the year, and then you didn't put students' names or anything else there, and you just recorded all your hours.
Right.
That, are you going to just kind of assume that most of the teachers turn in the hours at the end of the year? I mean, not that they do it, but there's a lot of opportunity to wait till the end of the year to fill the form.
There's definitely that opportunity.
So we're just gonna pay them.
Maybe we're just gonna pay them one time at the end. We're not gonna pay them as we go. It's gonna be one time at the end. And I'll tell you, as a whole, teachers prefer that, because then it's like a bonus.
But we don't use the word bonus.
No, but
Right.
But,
I
mean, we could pay them more often. It's just, they kind of like to get that lump sum.
So they don't have to list the names that are attending their tutoring session, and is it like a one-on-one thing, or
So
will they
this
just
is
say?
the log they would turn in to get paid. They keep a log already of 925 Laura Voss, these are the kids I had. But for payment purposes, you don't
Okay.
care who the kids are.
Well, no, but
They care who the
for
kids are.
for their records, they
Yes.
want to know
Yes.
who was there, but like, will this be one-on-one tutoring, or is it gonna be like, oh, my classroom will be open after school till 5 for any of my algebra kids that want to come?
I think it'll be a combination, and you guys can speak to that too. I think we will have some focused one-on-one, especially at the elementary level with some of our low-level leaders and some of our kids who struggle in math. I think we will have some of that, probably more so at the elementary level than we do at the high high school, although I think we'll have some at the high school too. But I can very easily also see, for example, high school math teachers saying my classroom is going to be open every Tuesday for algebra 1.
Could they turn in a form like saying monthly, not saying they necessarily get paid monthly, but they would turn in a form.
That's my concern is,
So then you.
I'm not
kind
saying the
of have
teachers
an
would do it,
idea.
but are they might for, you never,
You may, then at least you would have an idea of who's doing it. Not that they wouldn't know, but for a financial aspect, you're not surprised at the end of the year with.
yeah, so that would be my concern, like,
Kind of know
so
where
we're
it's
gonna do
going.
this, and then at the end of the year, they turn it in, and we're like, oh, I
And
didn't
don't
realize you
mind
did
at
that
all
many.
Doing a monthly sheet. The thing that keeps some of that from happening is they have to turn in a plan at the beginning, and it has to be approved. So they can't in April decide all of a sudden I want to do some tutoring. So they have to turn in a plan at the beginning, and it has to be approved by Tuesday, August 31st. And then all they can do is 35 hours. So somebody can't turn in 50 hours and expect to get paid for it. But I also don't mind having to turn it in monthly, just to keep track if that's what we would prefer to do.
I like that. The one thing I'm trying to wrap my head around, because I'm all about how do we pay our teachers more? But I'm trying to wrap my head around growing up with a teacher. They grade at night, they do all these things at other times of the day, but we're not paying them for that because they're exemplar employees. It's a part of the job. So is tutoring a part of the job or not a part of the job? And I remember growing up, there were kids always there early in the morning, kids there late in the afternoon. And so, yeah.
I hear you. I have struggled with that for years because not only did I grow up that way, but when I was teaching, that's what I did. But we're in a different era. And the schools around us, I checked with the other Show Me Conference schools. And every school in the Show Me Conference does some type of paid tutoring except for South Callaway, whose salary schedule is much better than ours anyway. And Russellville never responded, but the other, that's us. So, but the other 6 Show Me Conference schools do some type of paid tutoring as well. I completely understand what you're saying, because that same thought is one I have struggled with before too. But the reality is, I don't.
Is
think
it on there? Is there a set rate, I guess? I didn't see that.
for us, yes, it was $30 an hour.
Yeah. Correct. No matter.
I mean, so it's lucrative. I mean, you're essentially, I mean, if you annualize that, it'd be $60,000. So it's lucrative to tutor if you're trying to make extra money, which.
Well, right.
And I'm all for that, but there's part of me that's saying, man, I have $40,000, would you be better served putting that towards, just give it towards salaries, but then maybe you're not accomplishing, maybe the teacher would say it's 5 o'clock, I'm out of here, versus if they're getting paid for it, they stick around. So I can see both sides.
And that's kind of where I went with Sean, because I went the same way. Am I better off putting that on the salary schedule? But in all actuality, $40,000 on the salary schedule doesn't go very far. And then everybody across the board is getting that. And I'm not saying teachers don't deserve more money. But then am I still gonna have a problem of them not doing tutoring?
So
Because
what
there's
about-
no incentive for
What
them to do
about the
it.
teachers that have been tutoring now?
The only after-school tutoring that we have going on right now is at the high school, middle school, high school, and they get,
Yeah,
and they get paid right now $25 an hour.
okay, so they did get paid to do that. I mean, and I know there are some teachers that offer it just to be offering it.
Yes, I know we have some of those, but I don't think we have anybody at the elementary.
They make themselves available a lot of times before school, things like that, but as far as any kind of set
Yeah,
hours, I don't, there aren't any that do that.
and that's what we're trying to get to.
Is there a
knowing that-
need at the elementary school? Is there?
Well, in talking about what, with our 3rd, 4th grade, we should be offering 30 clock hours for students who are reading 1 grade level below their current grade level in 3rd, 4th grade. So that's something we want to do, and this is a way to do that. And it's just supposed to be 30 clock hours outside of school day.
So how
That's
does
kind of
that
part
work? So would that be like the 3rd and 4th grade teachers, or is it just?
It could probably.
Because I'm thinking, okay, they only get 35 hours. If they did that, know, for 2 months, we're done, they're done.
I'd probably look at more, I mean, it could be the third, fourth grade teachers, it could be a fifth grade teacher, it
Could be anybody.
whoever. Title would probably be really ideal for that as well, and we would not probably do one-on-one. You know, we look at some grouping based on our data meetings, and our intervention teams and so forth, and we'd say, well, the student is one that we're concerned about.
These kids will come on Tuesdays,
Right.
these kids will Wednesday, and then whatever teacher fits that.
And we probably, when I would ideally, after we see who is gonna sign up and who would wanna do it, ideally, I would have the set of teachers that provided that reading intervention, because we wouldn't wanna just do any kind of reading.
Right.
It's very tailored to what that child specifically needs. So then I would want somebody who was able to provide the kind of instruction the child needs. I mean, we would put together a group of maybe 3 or 4 or 5, you know, type kids. If it was a fluency thing at an upper level, then we might have a larger group of 10 or 12. They're doing some sort of a read natural or something like that, where the teachers facilitate. But with the targeted instruction, we'd probably be looking at a smaller number, 3 to 5 kids, something like that, with a very specific purpose.
I think I'd be a lot more piece at it next month if the motion says something about CARES and a pilot one time using CARES Act money to, because of the problems brought about by COVID.
There used to be a similar program to this called Career Ladder years and years ago, where they would pay those extra hours, except DESI unfunded it. And our school continued to fund it for a couple of years after, but that was it.
And COVID presents an opportunity where we got a lot of kids that are behind.
Yeah.
I mean, I get that part.
And then would you prefer then to do a monthly time log? It's easy to fix.
I think that
Doesn't matter.
eliminates the temptation, because I would be very tempted at the end of the year to fill out the log.
I'm not saying we need to pay them monthly, but I would like, or at least know where we're at, and that way you can come to us and say,
Then just
hey, here's where we're at, just so you can prepare the budget for it, or whatever, you know, or
amended.
and like, if we, also, it can kind of show us where we're at with it, like, after 2 months, if no one's doing it, then why keep doing it, you know what I mean? I think it's good just to keep, so we kind of see how it's progressing.
And that's, so say it's, a teacher has it set up to do it on, this algebra teacher is gonna do it on Wednesday, but no students show up that day. Would she still get paid?
You actually have to have kids there, correct? All right.
It would be interesting to look at it after the year to see if where the numbers go up and down.
Yeah,
They
that's,
go up at
yeah,
certain points of the year, or everything came in at the very last minute.
Right.
Right.
which I would think you would see a flux of it. After the first month, we probably won't see much. I wouldn't think. It's when
Well,
grades
yeah,
start
we
coming out and
And we
people,
don't have our data yet to put them in. flexible
right, that's what I'm
grades,
saying. Because when do you start the tutoring? How long into school?
Week 4.
Week 4, so.
And I think we will see, or I project we will see even an influx around ACT testing time, because we'll have kids who may want to stay or come in
Yeah.
for ACT prep. So I think, yes, I think there may be some evident flow periods. I'll make
Okay.
those changes and. have individual plans.
Okay, let's move on to item 8.6, approve the owner's representative agreement.
So as you know, we went out for an RFQ for an owner's rep. We have some projects that we know that we're gonna have to do in the future, and it's not like we necessarily need an architect for these projects. But we need somebody who is willing to work on our behalf, you know, if necessary, help with the specs, help go out for bid, help evaluate those bids, and then they can also help us throughout the entire project. And I'm just gonna use the roof as an example. You know, I could get on the roof and look at the roof and say, yep, it's a roof. But I'm not gonna know whether or not it meets the spec requirements or whether or not it's done to quality standards. I'm not gonna be able to look at the bid and say, you know what, that's really high for that level, or, you know, that's just something, you know, superintendents, most of us went to school to be educators, not construction managers. So I just would feel more comfortable going into some of these projects, having somebody working on our behalf. One of the things that we know we're gonna have to do is work on the track. And again, I'm not a track expert, so I don't know all the ins and outs of track. I don't know all the ins and outs of the track bid. You know, as we move forward with our HVAC issues, just somebody who's working on our behalf. Navigate Building Solutions put in an RFQ, and it's called an on-call agreement. So basically, we don't pay them anything unless we are doing a project. And then I'm gonna introduce Todd. Sweeney, am I right?
Yeah.
Okay. Corey Dexter Mueller would be our project manager if we entered into this agreement. He can be here tonight. His daughter's graduating preschool, I think. So Todd was here to answer any questions, but basically they charge us an hourly rate based on how long they think they would spend on the project, and that's what we pay them. New Bloomfield uses them currently. South Callaway currently uses them. One of the things that I asked, one of the things I asked Kevin Hillman from South Callaway was, because they did a roofing project not too long ago. And I just said, can you tell me approximately what you paid Navigate on your roofing project? So they had previously had a proposal for $148,000 to put a roof on. Navigate came in and looked at the bid and took it out for rebid with a couple of different options. And their project ended up coming at $54,000. The part of that process that they paid Navigate, including some minor additional work, was $20,000. So overall, they were about $74,000 into that project. I just wanted some idea of approximately what would it cost on just a traditional roofing project. They've also done some tuck pointing for them, a tuck pointing project that also included some significant window replacements. Their cost on that to Navigate was $45,882. Overall, though, they saved a significant amount of money by having an owner's rep work on their behalf. So that's kind of where I'm at. And you want to add anything about Ultimate Services?
Sure, my name's Todd Sweeney with that, Ecolab Solutions, I'm one of the co-founders. We've been working with public agencies, and only public agencies since 1989.
Hey, can you come up
Sorry.
here? Sorry, dude. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
You're fine. Just come on up so we can all hear you better.
Co-founder Navigate, been doing this since 1999. My team has. We work exclusively with public agencies. Our whole focus is to provide on-call services with the extension of your staff to bring our expertise to design and construction of improvements to facilities. Really what we're special, how we save people money is because we know how to buy it. We know how to buy public sector work, and we're procurement experts when it comes to the nuances of procuring roofs, tuck pointing, windows, and large capital improvement projects. Whether you're going to use a cooperative agreement like Ed Plus, or you're going to go out to competitively bid the work, there has to be competition. That's where I think a lot of the districts don't have staff on board or are trying to push something through. Just don't get the competition. They don't buy anything. And that's accurately defining what you're buying, putting the scope of work on the market so that you can procure it competitively, making sure you touch the local vendors and suppliers so they all have an opportunity to put their wares on the table and show their best price point to you as a district, and then knowing how to evaluate that and ensure that you're getting what you're paying for. We have on-call agreements with the state of Missouri. We have on-call agreements with GSA from everything from Columbia to St. Louis. You're in our sweet spot. We do everything right from Columbia over to St. Louis. I've got multiple on-call agreements that allows us to be effective and to handle these small projects without costing a lot of money. So we do, if you were to sign this agreement, you don't have to commit to anything, terminate this at any time. No conflict in any way. Corey will sit down with your team and say, okay, this roofing project, let's scope it out, let's understand what it involves. And then he'll give you hours ahead of time. He'll give you a not to exceed ahead of time. Generally, it's lump sum agreements. Each task order is based upon hours that are predetermined that you have seen, so we can't exceed that. to accomplish the task that's in front of us.
So your costs are not based on the size of the, I mean, it's the amount of hours you spend putting the bid specs together.
Yeah, we've done roof packages for so many districts, or window packages, or a playground, or a track.
And so,
We can pretty much tell you right off the bat at the beginning what it's gonna take, depending on the scope of work on our end, how many hours we expect to spend.
and so do you, are then the construction manager, do you deal with the contractor goes through you, or do they go through the school?
So we are a professional service, so the contract would go to school, right? Right. So any estimate we might generate, you might say, hey, man, we're looking for HVAC, what's it gonna cost the district? We'll build estimates for this, part of our service as well. The task order generates some estimates. And then that estimate is a prediction of cost of what some competitive bid process will make from local suppliers and vendors who will eventually do that work. We're not a construction manager at risk. We are simply a representative and a consultant to use additional.
What's your average fee of percentage project? I mean, I know you're gonna say you're gonna cut costs and it's gonna pay for itself and reduce costs, but what, I mean, ultimately, you know your number.
So to answer your question, if I'm working for Lynn and I'm doing a $5 million building, right, we run somewhere between about 3%. If we're doing a roof project, that has no bearing whatsoever.
It could be 15-20% at that point. So
Well,
easily.
really, all these roof projects.
Depends on how big it is.
Yeah, because what we'll do is, the first thing we'll do is, we've got resources we can get to come out at no cost. It's usually the manufacturer, so let's take the roof job. First thing Corey's gonna do is he's gonna say, okay, well, we look at the whole district, we're looking at one building, what type of roof, is it standing seam, is it TPO? And that all allows us to drive what resources we gotta bring. A lot of them we can bring to bear on your district at no cost. So like we'll go to Garland or Tremco and some of the manufacturers, those guys will actually come out and do roof inventories for you without you paying a cent. They do it because they're like us. They want to build a repertoire throughout the Midwest districts that they work with. And long-term, they want to be your eventual supplier of roofs, but they're a manufacturer. So what they're going to do is they'll do an inventory of the roof, do a study. We'll get that work. We'll take that, we'll evaluate that. That will inform us on what we have to do as far as writing bid specs. Nothing goes to the market how we buy. You can't have proprietary stuff and you lose the whole benefit of the bid. So it has to have the ability to be non-proprietary. So we'll build the specifications for you, include the manufacturing information we need, whether or not you need, anything beyond the roof that has to be repaired, say you've got some sort of water damage. We'll put that on the marketplace. We'll bid it, see what it is.
So you're always gonna put more equipment.
Oh, okay.
Not gonna spec a
That's
manufacturer.
what's happened here.
Typically, you're not going to exclude a local
And it doesn't
roofer
come back.
because they can't provide a certain.
Right.
Absolutely not. In fact, it's just the opposite. We'll reach out to we actively market the local suppliers.
So you'll market them, but you're not gonna go down the road to a roofing company and tell us what this needs. And then use that, I mean, that's what we would do. We would go get a local roofing company and say, climb up on that roof, and they tell us what they thought it needed to, and hopefully it would be enough in favor that it might help them in the bidding process and so on. So you're not going to do that with the local folks. You're gonna bring in a manufacturer to do that, or is there?
Yeah, I am, because the manufacturer is not the bid to work. So they're gonna provide bids to every installer. That, I'm using the roof as an example. Let's say you had to do a playground, and first thing we'd suggest is we bought a playground, you can do that through cooperative agreement, plus assuming that you're tied to that. The problem with co-ops, you say, well, I can just go anybody on the co-op, take it. But we're gonna net your value, right? So we know if you go buy that furniture or even the equipment, what isn't competitively bid to that process that we suggest it is labor, freight, project management. So we're gonna help you buy that. Again, what we really do well is we're expert procurement. So Mrs. showed you what it took to procure the food purchase. If you really want to do it right and save money, you need to do the same level of expertise with every construction item you buy. Because the roof is just as complicated, though it can be simple. You go to a vendor and ask for a number. That's what we Bloomfield did. That's what Ken Hillman did. That's what we met. Most of the time, they're going out and getting numbers.
That's what I'm saying.
Getting exposure to
What's
us.
it costing us?
Or showing that. I mean, Sam, I mean, it's a big difference between getting a number from a local vendor and giving him an opportunity to competitive, something that's well thought out, well. everything from logistics to access to the roof, all those things, if they don't come, there's premium cost you up front because the local guy's mistake is gonna throw money at it just to cover himself. They come as a competitive bid.
So when you say let's say we did the roof here, so are you saying your company procures the materials or the roofing company that bid the job, so they would not bid the materials?
No, they will price everything. They'll have.
But
all
then
your roofing materials
that
will
company
come-
would have to buy their materials through you.
No, the companies will go out and see, the specification that goes out will allow them to buy materials from local suppliers, Firestone, Garland, Tremco, any of the manufacturing companies. What we do is we put a performance spec together for the type of materials,
Right.
TPO, so many bills, how it's gonna be flashed, how it's gonna be connected. Do you have rot lines underneath your roof that need to be repaired? Don't have anything to do with the roof at all. It's structure, it's steel.
Okay, because you were saying about how it was gonna save buying materials through co-ops. I was just clarifying that.
Other jobs you can buy from co-ops, and then that, when we do that, on whether it's a roof or something else, that we also, a whole new process for that as well.
So when we start a project, are you gonna give us a firm estimate as to what it's gonna cost to get us through that process?
For our
Or are you
services,
gonna bill after the fact?
I will always give you, all school districts want a lump sum number ahead of time. Okay. What's my risk for using your services? The roof, I think it was 19K for the new, that was written into a task order that had the hours and allocation. The second thing that we're able to do, that most firms can't do, is we have, because we do these on-call agreements, I've got a resource, a friend of mine that worked for the state of Missouri for years as an inspector. He now works for us on call. He's right outside of Jefferson City, right east of Jefferson City. He's doing my inspections for, you would be included for South Callaway, because it's a quick drive, it's part-time. Another guy at Southeast Missouri, another guy at Wolf, so it allows me to use these guys just to hit job sites when we want to do an inspection, make sure you get the quality install too.
So if we agree to do a contract with you, how much are we paying you if we don't do any jobs this year?
Nothing.
So what's the point of the contract? So that,
Contract sets a basis of rate, so contract sets the terms and conditions for which you would engage us. It sets a template for the task order, and it sets rates for my services.
So we don't have to negotiate it every time. We don't have to put it out for bid.
okay, that's what I'm
our
just
word for
wondering.
it.
Yeah.
We have a contracted rate that you.
Yes.
I just want to know what,
Contract
kind of-
rates are the exact same ones South Callaway has, New Madrid, Sykeston, Bloomfield, districts in St. Louis area. We tried to up them $5, right? Because it's been a while since we've upped our rates, and South Callaway looks at there and said, why am I paying more than Ken's paying? And I was like,
So there's not a huge.
it's the right time to come, and they wouldn't let me up my rates, so you're getting the same rates everybody else is.
There's not a huge downside. I mean, we could, 3 months from now, we decide to do a roof. If we decide to talk to the local roofing contractor and cut you out, we have that option.
You can, in fact, I'd love you to do that first, and then hire. Because every single time, that's how I can improve my value. Get a bid from them, hope I'm not, that's the one to use up.
No, but you've got.
It's
roofing
not that
contractors
they're, don't take me wrong, I am not suggesting any local roofers make any attempts to mismanage. I'm just saying, is somebody's got to find the scope. When you define that scope, and you put it on a competitive bid process, it's changed. And they have the ability to tighten this, which is what that provides. Sorry, okay, we're just calling. We're gonna actually bid the price. Don't go anywhere. We need your bid, because you're gonna provide the best one.
My only other thing is tell Corey hello. I was one of Sean Strong. I was one of his faculty. at the university.
Oh, really? My middle son is down there right now. Who's the, president of your construction company. Right.
Very good.
Any other questions?
I like working at it.
If there's no other questions, I'll entertain a motion to hire Navigate as our representative.
I don't fear risk. I'll make the motion to hire navigators for.
Motion made by Sean Strong. Do I have a second?
second it.
Second, Ty. Any further discussion?
Because if we agree to this contract, we're not out anything.
We're not
No.
arguing it.
Cost nothing.
And if we want to use it, we can. If we don't, we don't, right?
Okay, well, if there's no further discussion, all in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0, motion carries. Thank you.
I would suggest.
Okay, item 8.7, certified, non-certified salaries.
I have included the certified and non-certified salary schedules that I'm recommending for next year in your folder. I'm recommending a $400 increase to the base salary for the 21-22 school year for certified, and then comparable rate. The non-certified schedule is based on the base salary for the certified schedule, so then those resulting raises for the non-certified staff as well. It does fit within the budget for next year and still keeps us having a balanced budget.
You know how much that's gonna cost?
Yes.
Because that's kind of what we got.
Going to cost the Sioux District right around $35,000.
So earlier today, I had a little bit of deja vu, because I think it was my first meeting, I asked the cost, so we got that, but I would, and it appears that this is the way a lot of schools do it. They come up with the raise before they have the budget completely done, which still makes zero sense to me whatsoever. Seems like we should have the budget done, because the raise is the biggest part of the, the salary is the biggest part of the budget. That should be the last thing we do, is come up with that number. My gut feeling is, and tell me how this works, we look at what the other schools are doing and we pick a number, because it's pretty darn close to what the other schools are doing. As I thought through it, I thought, okay, if salaries are our number one priority, then maybe that's the way to do it. You set your salaries and then you figure out the rest of the budget later. That said, it makes it really hard. It looks to me like if you look at the base, I spent a little time on today, look at the base of like a Blair Oaks versus us. They're about $5,000 higher on base. So we need to start to make that up, but you can't make it up if you're given the same increase every year. And you can't give more of an increase unless you know exactly where your budget is at the end of the year. So it seems a little convoluted, and maybe that's the way we all do it, but maybe it's worth moving forward at some point, looking at a different way to do it, so maybe we can start to make up some ground.
And it's fine if you want to put this off until next month when we bring the budget's done. We don't normally present that until June. So I personally would not recommend a raise until I was certain that the budget could withstand that. But if you want to put that off and do it next month at the same time as we do the budget, that's fine too.
Everybody signs contracts for next year. They don't do it depending on the state.
Well, not everybody, all of our probationary teachers have this. So that's totally up to you guys. If you want to table that until next month, we certainly can.
I don't want to upset a bunch of employees, but the same sense. I mean, if we could do more, if we can't do more, I mean. This is for like at State Tech, I know this is a month of huge fluctuations where we start moving money here and there and everywhere to try to figure out how big a raise we can bear.
And I've been doing that for probably about 3 months. I've gone back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. At one point, I had us up to being able to put 700 on the base. Well, then doesn't look like it's gonna work. So then I was back down. So said, I mean, it's fine with me if you want to wait and do it in June. I can certainly do that.
Depends, if the numbers aren't gonna change in June, you just as well to do it now.
I don't foresee the numbers changing because we've already gotten all of our federal program allocations for next year. So those numbers probably are not going to change. I've already talked to the county assessor on what he thinks is going to be our increase next year in terms of assessed valuation. So I don't foresee him giving me a different number between now and then. They've already given us our state adequacy target projection for next year, our Prop C target projection, and our classroom trust fund project projection.
So it sounds like you're close, but it does seem strange that the board doesn't see the budget before you. All I'm saying.
Sure. And again, if you want to do that next month when you do the budget, I certainly can understand that.
I make a motion that we table it till next month,
Okay.
until we see the budget. That way we can get it.
Second.
I think that way everybody just feels better. If it's not gonna change, it's not gonna change, but what's it hurt to wait a month? It's not gonna change. The teachers aren't gonna get paid until next year anyway, so.
Yeah, it doesn't go into effect until next
Right.
year. So
From an
that's fine.
employee standpoint, it's more about just, can we find some money somewhere else, or is there something with all eyes on it that maybe, what's our priority? And I think as a board, we need to talk about, is our priority making up that $5,000 difference? Or is our priority other projects?
Yeah, I say this is, I'll make a motion to table it till the June 29th meeting.
Okay, I have a motion from Ty, a second from Mark. Table the salary till next month. Any other discussion? Anybody else got any questions? All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0.
Retirement resolution for Emma.
Make a motion, we approve the retirement.
Second.
Motion from Sean, second from Ty. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. 7-0. Announcements. Our next regular meeting is June 29th. And with that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn to closed session.
I make a motion that we adjourn to closed session notice and hereby given that the board will go into closed session to discuss the topics approved in 610.021 RSMO, 12.1 approval of closed session minutes,